Before we get into today's video, I want to thank Canon UK for loaning me this lens for testing. This is the Canon RF 100mm f2.8 Macro IS USM, and I've been using it for about a week now, both in the studio and in the field. So although this won't be a full review, I would mostly call it a mini review because again, I've only had it a week, but I can give you my first impressions and my thoughts about this lens for macro photography if you are a Canon shooter. Now before I get on to my testing, I just want to point out that I did test this lens on a Canon EOS R. There's no image stabilization in this camera. It's a 30 megapixel sensor. So if you've got something like the R5 Mark II, your results are going to be better than what mine are. This lens has a 100mm focal length, a fast maximum aperture of f2.8, and it closes down to f32. Inside, it's built with 17 elements in 13 groups, and the diaphragm features 9 blades for smooth bokeh. You're looking at a minimum focusing distance of just 0.26 meters with a 1.4 maximum magnification. It weighs 685 grams and takes 67mm filters. Image stabilization, according to the Canon's website, gives you up to 5 stops or up to 8 stops with IBIS. Again, I haven't been able to test that because my camera doesn't have in-body image stabilization. Though at 1 times magnification, that stabilization is reduced to around 2 stops. Still, it's a huge help when shooting handheld in the field. The lens features a rubberized focus ring. It's smooth and precise, and autofocus is very fast and accurate, which is very impressive for a macro lens. It's not very often you can go to a 1.4 magnification and nail autofocus. A lot of times they hunt around. This one does not. It's very, very good. You've got a control ring as well, which I personally set mine up for aperture control. It's a great way to make quick adjustments without diving into the menus, especially in the middle of a shoot. Switch-wise, you've got all the essentials. You've got a focus limiter, which has 3 settings. It has the image stabilizer on and off, an autofocus and manual focus toggle switch, which I used a lot, and the spherical aberration control ring, which also has its own lock switch, perfect if you don't want to accidentally bump it. And lastly, the lens is dust and moisture resistant, so it's built to handle field conditions even when the weather doesn't cooperate. It does come with a nice lens hood as well, which is great if you are one of those macro shooters that likes to go out in the middle of the day when it's nice and sunny. I started my testing in the studio with the usual suspects, my jumping spiders. As you'd expect from an L series lens, the sharpness is top notch, especially with in-camera corrections turned on. Check out this side view of my jumping spider Venom. And as I've said on previous videos, you don't always have to photograph them from the front. One of the standout features of this lens is the spherical aberration or SA control ring. This allows you to adjust both the sharpness of the image and the character of the bokeh. Turning it to the negative side gives a soft, dreamy look, while the positive side adds hardness to the bokeh. I'll be honest with you, this isn't a feature I personally used much, but I can see it being useful for creative studio work. If you're into water drop photography or still life flower photography, this could give you some unique artistic options. If, like me, you don't use it, you will find a lock switch on the lens to lock it into position so you don't accidentally knock it while you're out in the field. Again, I started testing this in the studio. We did this water drop with a dandelion seed. It performed as great as you would expect from an L series lens. And again, we did a test shoot with Venom. Look at that cute face. I mean, come on. Everybody likes jumping spiders. They're just so cute. I also had a play with some UV photography using the Adaptalux UV system, and we got some good results. There's still some improvement to be made on my end with my skills when it comes to the UV, but I can't fault the lens itself. It performed great. There is one thing to be aware of, however. This lens can suffer from focus shift. It's not a massive issue if you adjust your workflow, but essentially, if you have your camera set up on a tripod, you focus on a water drop, for instance, this one here, and let's say you focused at f2.8. If you then adjust the f-stop to f8, the focus can shift. Again, it's not a big thing, I just need you to be aware of that. However, if you adjust your workflow, as in check your focus every time you adjust a camera setting, which to be fair you should be doing anyway, there ain't going to be a problem. But if you use autofocus and you're constantly adjusting your f-stop, it's something to be aware of, that you need to do your f-stop first and then focus. Let's talk about diffraction. This lens is sharp from f2.8, unlike its predecessor which was slightly soft at 2.8, this one isn't. It's sharp all the way up to around f14, which is where diffraction starts to kick in. I personally wouldn't go above that unless you're confident in your sharpening workflow technique. Anything past f18, in my opinion, becomes pretty unusable. As you can see from these example images, when you do push it past f18, it almost looks like everything is out of focus, and that is diffraction. It's something all lenses suffer from. So again, this lens is great up to f14. I found the sharpest maximum f-stop was around f10. The sharpness is brilliant at f10. Above that, you've got to start kicking in a little bit of post-sharpening in your software afterwards. And then again, above f14, it does start to show. I also took the lens outside for some natural light macro. Autofocus was very fast and accurate, and for macro, that is impressive. Of course, lighting is everything when shooting insects outdoors. Take a look at this shot of this ladybird. Again, harsh light is bad, so I rigged up my flash with the Cygnustech diffuser and went looking for subjects. Here is another shot of a ladybird with the flash and Cygnustech. These two I eventually found doing the nasty in the bushes. They wouldn't stay still, as you could imagine from doing the nasty. Well, so they wouldn't stay still long enough for me to capture some really deep focus stacking, but I did get some shots and some videos too. Back in the studio, I did some manual stacks since the EOS R doesn't support in-camera focus bracketing. However, if you've got a newer body that does support in-camera focus bracketing, this lens supports that, so you will be able to do in-camera focus bracketing with this lens. I was limited when doing focus stacking because the EOS R only has a buffer of 31 WAR files, which filled up very quickly. So I got my jumping spiders out and I did some quick manual focus stacking. Again, the image quality held up beautifully. I did notice a little chromatic aberration in some high contrast areas, but nothing too concerning, especially not unless you're doing very high level stacks. And if you look at this image here of my jumping spiders, beautiful image. I missed one area of focus right at its pepper pulse, which is a bit disappointing, but I'm still quite happy. And again, if you've got a newer body, your results can only get better. Throughout my testing, I kept the Godox DCR 250 close at hand. Out of the box, the Canon RF 100mm has a 1.4 times magnification. However, if you do fit the Godox DCR 250 to it, I can push that lens to around 2.3 times magnification. And that extra reach is fantastic for tiny subjects. And I also found myself leaving it on for most of the time. Being able to have a roughly 2.3 times magnification on a full frame setup is a very good magnification, and it's great for most subjects. So who is this lens for? If you are a Canon mirrorless shooter, this is the lens that will be good for you. If you're using any type of autofocus, if you want reversealing, if you got the old EF 100mm macro lens, this is a big improvement over that one in both terms of quality and image magnification. However, there are some things you need to be aware of. Again, there is that focus shifting when you change the f-stop. It does suffer a little bit from focus breathing as well. And the one thing that I did not like was the focus by wire on the focusing ring. And in my SR, I have two options. I have the full rotation, or I can change it to the focus speed to be linked to the speed of the rotation. That is very hard to do focus stacking with, so I don't recommend that option. But I did prefer the old mechanical focusing of the EF version. But maybe that's just something I've got to get used to. If you are a Canon mirrorless shooter, you want to do macro, you want autofocus, high build quality, sharpness with a 1.4 magnification and reversealing, this is the lens to go for. There are links in the description below if you want to check out the latest prices of this lens. As always, I don't put prices in my videos because the prices are always changing and you can always find a deal somewhere. But absolutely no complaints about this lens. It's performed very good, as you would expect from an L series lens. Again, I want to thank Canon UK for lending me this lens for review. It is much appreciated, but unfortunately I've got to pack it up now and send it back. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Drop a like and leave your questions in the comments below, and subscribe for more macro focused content. But for now, this is where I shall leave this video. My name's Stuart Wood, and I will see you on the next one.